A lie is where you willfully mislead somebody knowing that what you're saying is factually incorrect.
I think I lie very well for my profession.
What does a liar look like? What does a psychopath look like?
I just want to say I hope there's a lot of criminals listening to this. We'll be picking up some good tips. Hello, welcome to Fool Me Twice. I'm Brad Oakes. I'm a erstwhile comedian, and my co-host is
Steve Van Aperen, and I tell when people are lying.
You do indeed, don't you? You picked me up on the way in. So we're here because of that old saying. What is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And we're here to talk about lying because Steve is an expert on lying, and as a stand-up comedian, I haven't stopped lying since about 1989. And let's just get straight into that. It's an essential part of comedy, Stevie. You might be able to throw some light on this. For example, I talk about dating apps in my show, and I say to people, people can be quite dishonest on dating apps, and they misrepresent themselves, particularly physically in their photos. And I called this girl out on it in her photo. I said to her on the date, I said, "You don't look anything like your profile picture." And she goes, "Yeah, but to be fair, in that photo, I don't look this disappointed." Right? And I think there that people then will sometimes say to me, "Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you." Well, it never happened. I've never been on a dating app in my life. But as a comedian, I know a lot about them. I know other people's stories. Do people lie on dating apps?
Oh, of course they do. My favourite story is my previous business partner. She signed up her profile and she says, "Hey, Steve, what do you think of this dude?" And I look at him, he looks pretty buff. And she says, "Oh, he's 6 foot. He goes to the gym. He's pretty, six-pack and really good looking." So I said, "Oh, that photo looks a little bit old." Anyway, she goes out with him. She comes back and she goes, "Oh, my God, I hate dating sites." I said, "Why is that?" She goes, "He's 5'8", he had a pot belly, and he had teeth like a serrated steak knife." So really, when you think about it, let's say you're not that well, physically endowed or, not that good looking. You have to create. We lie. We lie for everything in life. We lie to get ahead. We lie to save face. We lie to impress a potential partner.
Yeah.
Presidents lie, prime ministers lie. We all lie. It's part of our social upbringing. Yeah. And in fact, a lot of psychologists say if you don't know how to lie, then you'll be taken advantage of yourself.
Right. And so, look, I imagine even as a child, I pretended to be hurt, pretended to be more hurt than I was. But I'll just take you back to the dating app. I love that guy's plan. But what's your plan once the other person turns up and goes, "Oh my God, you're a wreck"?
Well, really, when you think about it, you're there. But here's the issue, though. You would know that if you're lying in a profile, that sooner or later you're going to be exposed. Another great one, a good friend of mine, she goes on this dating site, and they just meet, and the third question is, "What's your blood group?" And she's thinking, "What the hell? Why would you want to know my blood group?" Turns out he's actually looking for a kidney.
Oh.
So he's using a dating site to potentially work out who are the right matches. So, you think about it, why would you do that?
Well, I did the same thing, but I used Uber Pool. I think, could you... do you know of anything that people should be wary of on these sites then?
Yeah, look, the way people use language is really important because when a male is trying to impress a female, they'll often tell them what they think they want to hear. "I love romantic walks along the beach." Now, how many men do you know like that? Right?
Yeah.
Or, the white picket fences. So, they'll listen and they'll see some of the profiles and then they'll actually adapt their profile for a potential match.
Right.
But in reality, we're very different. One of the talks I do it's titled "Why Women Make Better Lies and Men Have No Idea." So when a woman is interested in a man, she will bombard him with behavioural cues that signify that interest. The problem? Men have no idea.
Well,
Men don't know what the cues are.
Never
the signs.
experienced it in my life. I wouldn't know it if it was happening.
Well, it could be everything from printing gestures, grooming gestures, good eye contact,
Just taking
closeness. So, I mean, we need to look at body language, right? And the problem is a lot of men will mistake a smile for potential sexual interest.
Right.
When that may not be the intent. So, and you look at, I see this all the time at nightclubs and that, guys puff out their chest, suck their guts in, all that type of thing. A girl walks past them, they go back to normal. So we try to impress and we try to impress, potential partners and all the rest of it. So sometimes we have to lie to do that.
Yeah.
And I've always said it's only a matter of time before that lie is exposed.
Yeah. Well, so then is the strategy for these people that they'll know that their lie is going to get exposed, but by then they'll have a new lie or a new coping strategy?
Well, it depends on the personality. I mean, they could be a narcissist, they could be a sociopath. It really depends. But what we see consistently is people who lie and lie and lie. And we've all got friends that we know that the lie is just totally unbelievable, no credibility, but they keep maintaining that facade. So you know that if that's part of their normative behaviour, that's just how they get through life. And sometimes that's why these fraudsters do so well.
Yeah.
They're very good at manipulating not just their friends, but everyone else in between. And often the problem is not the manipulator or the liar; it's the other person, because they're the target. So if you have the skill sets to work out when people are lying and what to look for, then you'll be able to protect yourself. It's a vicious circle.
It's funny you bring that up. I couldn't believe that I fell for. I nearly got done by a con man, right? And the only thing that stopped me from getting done was the fact that I didn't have any money. That's
bad target selection, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it showed I was a pretty good liar. He thought I had money.
He's got to do more research.
But what he did was he'd never come up against comedians before. So it's myself and another comedian. But I know that he targeted my greed, my source for, wanting to get a bargain. And he ended up saying, he said he had acquired a business and he had to get rid of a fleet of cars. And he said to me, look, if you had $2,000 and, I could get you a 2-year-old Ford, would you be interested? And I was ringing my sister, just panhandling outside, just desperately trying to get the money. And it was, it was only like a couple of hours later, I went, wait a minute, this guy's. So, yeah, I understand that. So that good liars are going to tailor their lies according to what they think they're speaking into.
Yeah, but also not only are they good at manipulating, they're good at reading people, right? So have you ever seen those cases where you've got these people who say they're in the army and they were never in the army, right? And
Stolen valor.
Stolen valor, correct.
Yeah.
And they've got to create this profile to be liked or for whatever reason. Now, what happens is once they maintain that particular behaviour, usually you'll find it's consistent. I mean, if you look at some of your past relationships and you look at some of the things that people have told you in the past, sometimes they sound believable and credible, and we're often influenced by the personality of the person. I remember interviewing one of the most pleasant psychopaths you would ever imagine. Looks like a typical father, but he what does a liar look like? What does a psychopath look like? The word psychopathy is one of the most misunderstood words in the English language. People think that psychopaths go out and kill people. Well, I can tell you, people that you've probably worked with who have no empathy, no remorse, and they're applying for a job and they will destroy you in the process. And see, that's it takes lying to another new level.
Oh, look, I worked in the tax office as a young man, so I worked with a lot of people who had no empathy. a lot of psychopathy. Should we tell people just why you're an expert? You've interviewed a lot of people in your life, haven't you? And not for the Herald Sun.
My background is in '96. I was a police detective, and I was always interested in psychological profiling, what makes serial killers and serial sex offenders tick. So I was fortunate enough to go over to the FBI. Back in those days, it was called Behavioural Sciences Unit. But the more I learned about profiling, the more interested I became in cognitive and behavioural interviewing. I want to know why a lot of the detectives I worked with were not very good at spotting liars. And that,
Right.
I mean, that's your bread and butter.
Yes.
People will often lie to you for various reasons, like we've spoken about. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to have the skill sets to work out when people are lying, not using a polygraph or technology, but analysing content and structure of language. So combined with 14 years of police service, having worked on 89 homicide cases, you see patterns. Believe it or not, Brad, people are not going to lie to you. They'll often edit the information they supply you with. So they'll be evasive, omissive, dismissive, sidestep the issue, don't answer the question. And these are all little red flags. But secondly, we look for conflict or contradiction between what their body language is stating and what they're saying. And we look for anything that's incongruent. People think they're good liars.
Yeah.
But research shows we're not.
Yeah.
Secondly, in my experience, people say, who do you think make the best liars? Politicians? No, they're useless. They're terrible. Usually, in my experience, pedophiles are very good at manipulating and lying and all that type of thing.
Right.
So having done thousands of interviews and some of the training that I've done, I literally travel around the world now teaching intelligence agencies, homicide detectives, how to detect deception through verbal, non-verbal and paralinguistic behaviour. So that's how I got stuck into what I do.
Would there be a difference between, say, because a lot of people think from TV, etc., that criminals are the people who commit homicides, but it's everyday people, isn't it? People who've never done anything wrong before. So is it easier? Well, not easier, but can you spot a liar who's a professional criminal easier than a one-timer?
Well, they might be more practiced, but what you'll find sooner or later there will be holes in their story. They will sooner or later contradict what they've previously said. Because you think about it, right? I've been watching you. Every time you recall a historical event, you look up to your left.
Yeah.
Right? That's only one little indicator we look at. Now, if you're going to access the creative side of your brain and create a lie or a false memory that never existed, then you don't have access to historical information. So you've got to create a lie. You've got to make it sound believable and credible, and you don't want to contradict yourself. That causes what we call cognitive load. It takes a lot of processing. So usually I found that I don't care how well prepared you are, you cannot possibly pre-anticipate every question that I'm likely to ask you. So let's say I'm interviewing you for a homicide. Pathologist establishes a cause of death 7:15 p.m. last night. I'm going to ask you what you did from, say, midday to midnight. I went out. Where did you go? I went out to dinner. Who did you go there with? What time did you leave? How did you get there? What was the route you took? What restaurant did you go to? Have you been there before? How much did you pay? What was on the menu? What did you order? What time did you leave? Now, that, if you're lying, is going to create a lot of what we call response latency, ums and ahs while you're thinking.
Yeah.
But I'll also be cognizant of the fact you might have been to that restaurant before. You're recalling historical events because you know what that restaurant looks like. But let's say you didn't go there on that night. I'll go to the restaurant. I'll check to see. I'll speak to witnesses.
Is that
I'll get
response latency, was it?
Yeah, so how people respond. However, this is what the FBI teach their agents. What we need to do is benchmark behaviours and then look for deviations from that normative behaviour. So if I'm interviewing somebody and there's a lot of response latency or certain terminology, I swear, man, I swear to God, I swear my wife's life or whatever, and that's part of their normal vernacular, that tells me nothing. However, if there's a change from, I'm not sure how deep you want to go, but we use pronouns. Pronouns will denote ownership or distance.
Right.
So if I interview somebody, I'll say, where did you go? And they say, went down to the shop. What they're not saying is, I went down to the shop. I've worked on a lot of homicide cases where I'll look at, media interviewing people and not knowing if they're a suspect or a family member or victim or whatever. And I've seen many times they'll use distancing language. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Yes.
Or as in the Baden Clay, I don't know if you remember the case in Queensland where he reported his wife missing. Jared Baden Clay is a real estate agent from memory.
Right.
And what had happened was he gets up there, I think one of the Channel 9 reporters does a doorstop. And he turns around and he's got a big scratch down the side of his face. And he says, I'm really worried about my children. Right there, red flag. Now, his wife and mother of the children are missing. Why is he saying my children? Why is he not saying our children?
Yeah.
So when people jump between tenses, there's usually missing information. So if you're recalling historical events, you're talking past tense. As soon as I see people jump between past event and present, then there's missing information, and they're fabricating.
I just want to say, I hope there's a lot of criminals listening to this. You'll be picking up some good tips. Because you mentioned, like, I look up to the left, and I presume that's what people do. Do blind people do that?
Well, now I have to listen to what they say, the content and structure. But see, you do more than that, right? So you're very animated with your hands. So let's say I'm interviewing you for armed robbery or something. Then all of a sudden you go into what I call lockdown, and you're not as animated with your hands. I'm thinking, why are they changing the behaviour?
Yeah.
Why is he not answering the questions? And why is, when he recalling the information, he's looking in an opposite direction? Why is he not answering the question? Why is there micro expressions, distress signals, hand-to-face masking, concealment, blocking behaviours? See, I have no friends.
A big stripped bear here.
I haven't even started.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I can see you doing that too. So just back to it. Is there, would there be any benefit then in telling people what to be wary of? Because I suppose what we're talking about there with the profiles predate is we're talking about a static lie there, aren't we? We're talking about basically a poster that's been left up which has lies on it, right, which is going to have some kind of either confirmation or non-confirmation. So you turn up, what happens? You just go, oh my God, he's got one leg.
You rather see that's fact. You think about it, right? If you want to convince me that what you're saying is true and factually correct, you'll have information, content, structure, detail. Why? Because you can recall events, you can recall conversations, you can recall emotions. Now, that's something a deceptive person who creates can't do because they've got to make them up.
Yeah.
And, not only are we not good at lying, research shows we're not very good at spotting a lie. In fact, most research is in the vicinity of 54%. So you might as well flick a coin. Why? Because we're absolutely influenced by the personality. We've had people in the past that lie to us. We don't want to believe they're lying.
Yeah, well, that's
and all the cues and signals are there.
Well, that's a big one. Because what I do with my comedy students is one of the things I get them to regularly do is they have to. You remember that game, Two Truths and a Lie? Mm. And I get them. They have to try and get the lie past me, and I've probably got about a 60% ratio. Initially I'll get 100%, and then they'll get better at it. And the reason why I'm doing that with them is I'm helping them to learn how to structure jokes to sound authentic, because that heightens the pleasure of the audience for the audience. And where I'll notice all the time is there will be that change of ownership. They'll say things like, I used to go on holidays to Rye. I punched my brother in the face when my mum wasn't looking, and I ran over the dog. And I'll know which one it was because of the ownership in there. So we're not setting out to say to people there's definitive advice here, but
there are cues and signals. I mean, you ask somebody a question, they don't know the answer and they're making up. They'll do what you did during what you're saying before. Somebody doesn't know something, they'll shrug their shoulders, put their palms skywards, raise their eyebrows. So one of the things I teach people is how to look for micro expressions, distress signals. As human beings, we all exhibit the same facial expressions of shock, horror, disbelief, anger, contempt, happiness, and sorrow. Now, the problem is that we don't even realize we're doing that subconsciously when we know that what we're saying is factually incorrect. And that's what the definition of a lie is, by the way. People say, what's a lie? I'll tell you what a lie is. A lie is where you willfully mislead somebody knowing that what you're saying is factually incorrect.
Right. Okay.
And we lie about the smallest thing. I mean, it could be something as simple as, oh, did you like that roast? Yeah, it's fantastic. I lost my eye contact, number one. I looked down,
Yeah.
number two. Number three, I shook my head in the negative while I was saying something positive. So we don't even know consciously what we're doing half the time.
Yeah, and you did tell me you're a vegetarian earlier as well. So I so the a bit of advice that I would offer people then is, I would say that if you're going to have a date with somebody that may have misrepresented themselves on one of the apps, I'm getting tripped up on LinkedIn all the time. If you're going to go on a date with somebody, make sure that you have a date where there's enough room to get out the toilet window in case you just have to go and do a runner.
I got to tell you my story about many years ago. I went on an internet date, and it was my first. I really didn't know what to expect. And anyway, so there's a bit of communication with this girl, and I look at the photo, and the photo looked a bit, before AI, airbrushed, Photoshop, all that type of thing. It looked pretty old. So we organised to meet in a cafe in South Melbourne. So I'm waiting there, and her name's Rebecca. And I'm sitting down there. I get there a little bit earlier, just check out the scene. And there's a magazine in front. I'm just reading through that. And I look up, and I see this girl, and she was stunning, absolutely beautiful. And I'm looking, and my jaw drops to the ground. I'm going, wow. And she's walking straight up to me. And I said, Rebecca? And she goes, no, Julia. Oh! And she walked past. And anyway, a little bit later, Rebecca comes up. And I look up and I go, ooh. And it was not what I was expecting. Getting back to the profiles, in the last 6 years, there's been more research that show that men and women lied with equal frequency. The difference is women would often lie to make other people feel better about themselves, whereas men would lie to make themselves look better. So the research is pretty clear on this, that it really depends on the individual. And the education too, how much more structured people are with language, how better educated they are, and have the ability to communicate effectively. But irrespective of that, I've dealt with some very intelligent people, and their lies have been, very obvious.
Wow. All right. So I just on gender, right? So I wrote a short story years ago about an elite police unit that basically was...
Wasn't barge ass, was it?
Thank you very much. If you want to get into it with me, right, you'll find out that I can be very honest. All right. Anyway, the unit was basically run by this, inspector, and all the investigators, bar one, were mums, right? And it was based on the fact that you will not find a more elite squad of people being able to detect lies than mothers, right? Because consistently they get lied to, and so many, like a friend of mine, she knows when her daughters are lying. My mother used to say, "Well, I know it's not true," and I go, "How do you know?" And and of course, she's just basing it on the fact that she knows a lot about me.
Well, there are more evaluation centres in a woman's brain than men. So that's why they're much better at reading and interpreting body language. Often, a couple go out, and a girl will go up to the guy, start talking, and their partner will say, "Oh, she was flirting with you." And he may say, "Well, no, I was just being polite." So it comes down to your definition of what constitutes flirting or not.
Yeah.
So you can be polite to somebody, doesn't mean you're flirting with them. And that's the difference between the species when it comes to how men and women analyse information. Men and women interpret language very differently. I'll give a quick example. My ex used to say, "Oh, the rubbish bin's getting full," which is code for...
Yeah.
And men say, "Well, just tell me what you want," rather than, or she'd say, we'd be driving past a Chinese restaurant, and she'd say, "Are you hungry?" That's not a question, that's a directive.
Yeah.
And we've lost the ability to read people, but also we communicate differently, and we process information differently.
Right.
Now you know why I have no friends.
Yeah, well, that barge ass comment didn't help. I think just just getting back to the nature of the lies. Okay, so I think there are things that are benign. If you said to me, do you think this shirt suits me? By the way, it doesn't. I'm still smarting over that barge. I was going no, if you ask that, rather than say my truth, it's just easier to just get acquiesce and just go, yeah, no, that's fine. And it looks good on you. Are there degrees there? Like, do you just go, yeah, that's fine, or do you go, no, it looks really good, or do you just come? There are people who say, no, it looks crap.
Yeah, there are degrees. Could you imagine telling everybody what you really? Could you imagine telling your boss what you really thought? Imagine how much trouble that would get you into. So to answer your question, Professor Paul Ekman calls them pro-social lies. So little white, benign lies to maintain a relationship. There's no malice in it, for whatever reason. But then there's more serious lies where someone like a narcissist may want to control you or want to, take control, but govern your behaviour as well. So,
right.
I mean, there are different lies. Pro-social, little white lies we all tell, but then there are more serious lies. And lies start wars.
Yeah. Well, it's World War I. Is there a compulsion in it? Like, I think you're talking about job interviews. That thing at the end where they say, "Is there anything you'd like to add?" Right. Well, that's I might say, well, I think you're a shit interviewer. That's not going to get me a job.
How's that been working out for you?
Exactly. But look, I do know people like that. In fact, I knew a guy who hated the police, and he was always in trouble when he got pulled over by the cops because they would start out being nice to him, and he would just, do you know why you pulled me over? Yeah, because you're and it would go from there, and that's compulsion.
So let me ask you a question. Saying you're throwing all these questions, do you think you're a good liar?
I think I am in certain circumstances. I think I lie very well for my profession.
What about outside your profession, where there's now something at stake?
Yeah, I think I'll go all right.
Huh?
Yeah.
What's the biggest lie you've ever told?
Ooh, I don't want to say. I don't want to say.
Do you think you're good at spotting lies?
I thought I was. Yeah, I think I am, but I know that that's hubris as well. I know that I could get tripped up at any stage because
your story about the cars. You could see a benefit to you, and the story, even though it sounded incredulous, you could actually, and you ring out your friends, you're telling them. So automatically at this stage, that con man has got past the first base.
Yes.
He's built a rapport with you,
Yeah.
and he's promising you something. And even though unless he doesn't, you still accept it.
Yeah, you want it to be true. Yeah, because it's of great value to me. I got interviewed by the cops when I was.
Here we go.
I was about. I think I was about 15 or 16, and we were on the side of my music bowl on a Saturday afternoon, and we were playing. One of my mates had a flick knife, and we were playing splits. You know that game where you
between your feet.
Yeah, you throw the knife between your
that.
feet, right? And suddenly two cops walk up, and we see them coming. So my mate pockets the knife, hence the name, and the cops come over and they go, "Where's the knife?" And we go, "What knife? What knife? No, there's no knife." And because I was mouthy, the senior cop goes, "I'll take him," to me, and you take the
I
guy.
like a challenge.
You take the guy. And the senior constable took me over, and I gave him the best story,
Which was?
that we'd been going to town because my friend Alfie was Italian, and it was a family knife, and it was supposed to be getting repaired and cleaned, and we got there to this place on Elizabeth Street where they repair knives. It wasn't open. We were taking it home. Okay, so he goes, "Well, that's good. Yeah, okay. Well, that's a good story. I'm just going to confer with my colleague over there." And I went, "Oh, shit."
Now you know why coppers separate.
Yeah, exactly. Because I just thought, a small part of me thought, there's a very slim chance that he's made up exactly the same story.
Very slim.
And so what I saw these two cops like increasingly looking over at me, disappointed. And he told me, when he said they confiscated the knife, just said, get your dad to come in and get it. And the parting words to me were, next time don't bullshit the police. And I thought, I'll just get better at it.
And how's that working out for you?
Look at me, I'm impoverished.
But see, here's the point: when you were put on the spot, you didn't have time to compare, validate each other's stories, and of course, there's going to be contradictions and inconsistencies.
The worst thing you can do in anything is have a confederate, because the chances of them being as smart as you, coming up with the same ideas, having the same breaking point as you, it's like you learn that in a tax office. You do not whatever you're doing wrong, you do not tell anybody.
One more question for you before we wind up. What's the funniest lie you've been told?
The funniest lie, jeez. I'd have to get back to you. We'll do that. We'll cover that in another episode, I think.
We will, because we'll speak to people in these future episodes, and we'll ask them those questions.
Have you got a funniest lie?
Well, yeah, I do actually. Without naming people, as you know, I do polygraph testing.
Yes.
And I get people coming in. I had a couple come in, and this woman wanted me to test her partner, who I thought their husband and wife. They were not. They were mistress. This woman was his mistress, but he was married. And this mistress wanted him tested about whether or not they were having sex, or he was having sex with anyone else other than her and his wife. And I'm looking at this guy, and like he's caught between a rock and a hard place. So we do the test, and he said, "Oh no, I haven't, definitely haven't." And because 9 times out of 10, even before, you don't need a polygraph to work out if someone's lying to you. All the signs were there, and like he was sweating bullets, and I knew he was lying. And of course, he did the test and didn't do too well.
Yeah, I did have one. I was working on the door at a comedy venue just around the corner.
As a bouncer?
Well, funnily enough, I was responsible for getting people in or out, as well as taking that. Anyway, one night on a Thursday night, I'd had to help the owner remove this guy, and he was he was a well-known person in the frame for a murder. Excuse me, and. I didn't know that. We took him outside, and then the owner stayed outside, and he came back in, and he was white-faced, and he said the guy showed him a gun. And I went, oh, my God, what have we done? Anyway, fortunately, and he was a local Port Melbourne person. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I'm working on the door, and this guy comes to the door, and he goes, he said, how much was it to get in? I said, $7. Shows how long ago it was. $7. And he goes, no, I don't want to do it. I said, mate, in or out, I don't care. You're not coming in unless I've got my arm across the door. And he goes, there's 2 blokes looking for you. And I shit myself. And I said, what? And he goes, there's 2 blokes looking for you. They're out. They really want to get you. And I said, who are? And I pulled him through the door and I said, who are they? And he goes, Ashley and Martin. And he certainly sucked me in. Anyway, all right, so that's it. Fooled me twice. We started out as partners, but I feel like this was quite harrowing for me.
Yeah, I haven't even started. Wait till future episodes.
Oh, right, well. Excuse me. All right, so thank you, Steve. We'll wait for future episodes. Is there anything we need to mention? Okay, all right, well, sign off. And just remember, if it looks really good on that dating profile, it's probably not true.
100%.
Right.
A lie is where you willfully mislead somebody, knowing that what you're saying is factually incorrect.
I think I lie very well for my profession.
What does a liar look like? What does a psychopath look like?
just want to say, I hope there's a lot of criminals listening to this. You'll be picking up some good tips.